Okay, welcome everyone. We are back. This panel is about communal needs, communal empowerment, using sense of place to adapt to change, to climate change. And welcome.
Hey everyone, thanks for coming. Our panel, as Ricardo said, is communal needs, communal empowerment. My name is Landan Schaller.
I'm Davis Clark.
Jojo Matson.
I'm Freiha.
And unfortunately, our friend Chase Cordova was not able to present with us today. He's been suffering with an illness this week, but stay tuned. There will be a recording of his presentation sent out very shortly. It'll be pretty cool. So as a group, we recognize that a sense of place is often something that creates the most meaningful lives for members of a community. But further than that, we also see the sense of place can be a key component to resilience in communities that are faced with environmental change. So in this panel, we'll present 4 unique projects that really bring a sense of place to the forefront of academic and environmental action. Please enjoy as we explain how we each will engage with these diverse communities to empower innovation in adaptation through that specific use of sense of place. For my project, I will be cultivating sense of place in the town of Crested Butte, hoping to help form a shared understanding of local environmental ethics that are between longtime residents and new arrivals. I'm hoping to accomplish this through a welcome package system and maybe an ongoing blog or podcast that highlight the context of Crested Butte's unique history, ecology, and vulnerabilities.
Hey everyone, I want to start by saying that most of our global issues when it comes to social ecological issues are a result of a deep disconnect with one's sense of place. So mountainous communities that live around North and South America and live upon that live upon love and humility when it comes to their daily lives and traditions, that deserve their utmost support when it comes to assisting these communities, when it comes to mitigating the devastating effects of climate change. So my project, the foundations of my project are based around the United Nations SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and they will help me develop a sturdier strategic plan and action plan to implement. Thank you.
And I'm using a long-held sense of place that has endured generations of adaptation and is being held through story. And I'm going to utilize this story to connect with the communities and try to create resilience and community adaptation and connection to the Colorado River.
I'll be working with northern Indian farmers to help develop a cooperative that focuses on increasing individual, community, and ecological resilience in the face of a changing climate. One of humanity's most fundamental connections to Earth is our reliance on agriculture, and cultures and civilizations are reliant on Mother Nature not only for our physical subsistence, but also for our cultural and spiritual fulfillment. And people who grow food have this strong connection, this sense of place to the land, to the ecosystems and the land that they live and work in. And community, and this sense of place is really at the forefront of what allows us to connect to people, create communities, and grow together, celebrate Earth and everything that we share. And this is only one way that communities are able to develop a sense of place. There's many types of communities, but sense of place is really at the foundation of what allows us to like I was saying, connect and grow as communities, and allows us as environmental professionals to engage with the community and have this leverage point in order to adapt to the changes that these communities are facing, to really connect to that sense of place that they have. So that's something that kind of draws us all together. And with that, I think we're going to move forward into our individual presentations, and I'll hand it off to Jojo to start that.
And I'm going to stand behind the computer because I made my presentation all fancy. It's not on the main screen, though, for the rest of everyone to see. You're getting a preview. Mhm. Okay, let's start. Maybe. No, it's not going to play. I guess my video is not going to play. So I guess imagine yourself floating along a river, moving through rainbow painted deserts. Vegetation that looks like it's from another planet transitions into a gradient like music. Animals, strange yet perfect for their wild and harsh landscape, follow paths known for generations. So the Colorado River connects all of these things, this entire ecosystem. And it has an ecosystem service that is connected to both the landscape and the resource that is arguably the most vital resource, water. 40 million people rely on that resource. 40 million people draw water from the Colorado River. And 15 different sovereign governments manage that water. You have 13 federally recognized, and I say federally recognized, reservations, tribes, United States, Mexico, and underneath that, we have 7 different states, a plethora of management agencies, and nonprofit organizations, private and public businesses, and agricultural interests. So I work with the Navajo Nation, trying to utilize these resources together with their connection, cultural connection, to create a resource monitoring strategy program for the Glen Canyon Dam Adaptive Management Program. And I'm going to utilize ecosystem service frameworks to inform that in the adaptive management program system. So I'm working under the Heritage and Historic Preservation Department within the Navajo Nation, and that is partnering with a lot of different departments within the tribe. So the Navajo Fish and Wildlife has different programs, the Cultural Plant Resource Program, Climate Change Program, and a lot of other different industry and agency programs. And we're collaborating with the Glen Canyon Adaptive Management Working Group. Since the 1990s, this has been happening. So there are so many different people that are connected to this. Different affiliated tribes, different federal agencies, state agencies, recreational interests, lots of different organizations working together on this adaptive management strategy. I'm working specifically in the Grand Canyon with the Navajo Nation, hopefully next month spreading to the San Juan River. So my issues that I'm dealing with is a disconnected river. We manage things incredibly compartmentalized and separated. The amount of times I hear the Glen Canyon Dam is anything above that we can't talk about in this conversation because I'm looking at effects from the dam, which blows my mind. Intangible and qualitative things are usually ignored or don't have any way to be integrative. Cross-boundary conflicts are really hard. I'm dealing with sovereign governments that have entirely different ways to deal with and manage those landscapes. And policy and regulations are built on faulty data. The river is based off of a faulty number, and everything is managed on that number. Climate issues make all of this worse. You have accumulative climate stressors, increased socio-ecological impacts because we use that place still, and those stressors are multiplying those impacts. And then I have cultural conflicts that I have to consider as well. Environmental justice issues. There are a lot of separation of landscapes and displacement from those ancestral lands, which engages a lot of knowledge and loss of language in traditional ways. So how are we going to move forward from this within this program? I'm hoping to collaborate and make relationships. So I don't have an exact project I can say you guys can work with, but I hope to work with all of you guys at some point. So if you work within government agencies, nonprofits, especially nonprofits, trying to do work and create relationships together and utilize those relationships to manage across those boundaries. And with that, I hope to continue to create collaborative commissions and councils, similar to the Bears Ears Commission that's being managed on that landscape right now. And we're also helping to create some cultural continuity programs, having tribal youth and tribal elders together in the river. We had some of that on this trip in May, and it was very magical to see how recognizable it was, the connection to that landscape that all ages had instantly. I also hope to connect us together. Like I said, I'm using ecosystem service frameworks. I'll be utilizing that to translate and define thresholds and metrics that create this integrative database system on these story systems, and using photos and images, trying to create a landscape and community-based solution. I know we don't like those words, but I try to create those kinds of solutions. And with that, I hope we can grow. I'm trying to utilize this monitoring strategy to map story in place using video, photo, story, and then with that, identify critical resources from those stories to connect to ourselves and the land and those value systems and understand how we can manage those moving forward. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Davis, who's going to talk about another amazing community and how they're connecting to the landscape.
So again, my name is Davis, and the title of my project is developing a farmer-led co-op in Uttarakhand, India. So just kind of adding to that framework for improved agricultural systems, community resilience, and mental wellness amongst rural Himalayan farmers. So this is kind of, I'll get more into this, but basically co-ops are a big thing in India. Lots
Y'all are putting door handles on the other
most
side,
farmers,
right?
I'd say, are small shareholders. They have small farms, and they are not represented well by their larger industry or nation. So having a cooperative of farmers that work together, as Ajay was saying in our presentation a few days ago, really helps them connect to markets or share resources or thrive as businesses or people in general. So I imagine most of you can click through both of them, there's two, probably don't know where Uttarakhand, India is. It is in northern India. So this is the state of Uttarakhand. I will be in a community that has a university called Himbati Nanam Bahugan Agarwal University. I call it HNBGU for short because that's a mouthful. So I may talk about that here in a second, but the idea is to be working with a mountain community similar to what is here. So as you guys may know, Western Colorado or Gunnison has a sister cities partnership with Majkali, which is also in the state of Uttarakhand, India. It's about 6 hours from where I'll be, so it's not super close, but it's in the same region. And I'm interested in working with rural farmers in the Himalayas for several reasons. One, I've been to that region of India and I loved it. It was amazing. I wanted to go back. And also, I think there's a strong connection to be made with what I've learned here in my experiences in Gunnison, seeing organizations like the Producers Guild working
Hey, can I get y'all
together
to throw something away for me?
have a sense of
Y'all
community
come in for a second?
built into that sense of places, like I was talking about earlier, where people like Sue Wyman and other farms in the area, they rely on each other, they help each other rather than competing against each other for market access and resources. So this is just a zoom in of Uttarakhand. There are many districts. I'll be here in Srinagar, just to give you an idea. It's in the foothills
Can
of
we
the
throw all
Himalayas,
this in
so
the
it's
dumpster?
not at 15,000
Yep.
feet or anything.
Oh, this in the
I'll
box.
be in a river valley.
No, it
with
doesn't
farmers
open.
that
I mean, you can
are in
try.
the rural area, either working in the hills or in the river valleys. You can click through a few. Yeah. So my project goal, as I was saying, is to create a structure for a farmer-led co-op. So they call them FPOs, farmer producer organizations in India, and there's many of them. I believe there's 3 in the district that I'll be in alone. And so this is not a strong agriculturally productive state. Other states like now you're gonna try it. Still learning how to pronounce Hindi things. So there are other states that produce a lot more agricultural goods, right? And Uttarakhand is a mountainous state that produces small, products. But that doesn't mean that there aren't farmers that need assistance and help and communities to connect to. So there are already lots of FPOs, but my idea is to come in with an FPO that really focuses on that resilience aspect on 3 levels: the individual, the community, and the ecological or ecosystem levels. So to do that, I'm going to focus on extending agricultural techniques, regenerative agriculture, organic agriculture, agroforestry, things that can save water, reduce chemical input, allow farmers to adapt to the changing climate, because there are issues of changing weather patterns. Monsoons come at different times or with more or less water. And these are things that, the farmers have been working against, for a long time. They've been learning, they've known how to farm traditionally for centuries, and now there are things that are changing that I think can be mitigated through more modern practices. And then improve market access and resource sharing. So that's kind of that collaboration piece of the community. As Ajay was kind of showing, if you have one basket of beans, is that worth, paying the transportation to a town that's 100 kilometers away to sell it? But if you have 10 farmers that have one basket of beans, then you can have 10 baskets go to the market. And so that's just a simple example of how having a cooperative can increase that community and resource sharing to benefit everyone. And then the access to mental health resources is kind of a added addition through collaboration with Ajay. Ajay, as you may remember, runs an organization called the Foundation for Contemplation of Nature, which focuses on inner and outer resilience. And that inner resilience component through farmers is really essential. It's not unique to India, but it is gotten a lot of attention in India of the farmer suicide rate, and the stress that farmers are under is incredible. And so having some sort of resource and access to mental wellness and resources like Ajay's Foundation for Contemplation of Nature, I think could be extremely beneficial for farming communities. So the deliverable may adapt and change as I get there. I'm still new to understanding what the community needs are and understanding what is feasible in my project timeline. But right now I'm thinking my deliverable looks something like a pilot co-op, group of handful of farmers that are willing to work together and share resources and share knowledge and have a connective network of resources, whether it be the university in Srinagar or Ajay in Majkali, or someone here at Western, or other universities and resources that can share these different practices amongst each other. I think one of the really important pieces of my project is how many stakeholders it does bring together and how diverse of input, I guess, there is into the project. So this is the HMBGU logo. So I guess I'll be working with the University of India, and I'll be working through the Sister Cities partnership that Gunnison already has developed, and previous students have gone over to Majkali, and maybe one day one of you all can go to Majkali. I believe they're doing a trip in May to go to Majkali. So if you're interested in going to India, maybe learn more about that. And then I received a Fulbright grant to do this, and so there's a whole nother level of collaboration at the national level. The Fulbright Nehru administration is interested in extending cultural, cross-cultural exchanges between Indians and Americans.
All right, when you get back,
and then
we'll take this upstairs.
Yeah, and then so working with people, so my target groups, will be obviously local farmers, and then there's a whole other group of people like women and children that I think are extremely important. The majority of farmers in India are women. They're not the majority landowners, but they're the majority of people who actually work the land. So learning how to integrate and empower those communities and create connections that have leadership with the people who are actually working the land, rather than having the men be the leadership and then the women, who are doing all the work. I think would be extremely important, but also a challenge as a man a foreign man going into those communities. So I believe that's all I have time for. But with that, I'm going to pass it off to Landan to talk more about a local mountain community.
Yeah, it was like, yo. And I was like, they handed me the shit, I popped it, and I was like,
my name is Landan Schaller. My project, recreation in Crested Butte, finding new ways to communicate.
That's
But then the line
I want to begin by just kind of talking about some of the things that we struggle with.
I didn't even want it in the first place.
Go ahead and click one more. There's
you want to do lunch
that's
or
really
have
paramount to the experience, making a positive experience in mountain communities. Demographics in mountain towns are changing very rapidly in some cases.
You can feel what?
Recreation and that nature therapy that we seek in mountain environments is something that's often under threat by overuse.
It's finally not boiling outside.
And we know that sense of place really just take a time and intentionality to create. It's not something that just magically occurs. So we struggle with some of these things. In mountain towns, we struggle with new arrivals who are often missing context about the environment and about the environmental choices that have been made. We struggle with locals who often feel antipathy and resentment about the changes that come with new arrivals. And naturally, this can make policy or legal action fairly difficult or less productive. So we really can realize that sense of place requires more investment than just the financial kind, and that can be quite a burden on these communities. What this aroused for me was a question. If we recognize that change is inevitable, then how can we take that change, co-create or recreate a solid sense of place? In essence, can we help outsiders become locals who, in the sense that they prioritize environmental ethics as a part of praxis? So really, as I drilled down into this question, the thing that occurred first was what I can do at a personal level. And that really is to heal myself. It's to work on adapting to this change by being a positive voice within it and taking the antipathy and resentment and redressing that through my actions in the community. Go ahead and give me about four more, please. So the deliverables I'm working to kind of do this process for myself is to create a welcome package that could be delivered to new arrivals in the community. And this will be focused on mixed media storytelling through art, through video, through written word. And it orients new arrivals to the specific environmental ethics that have taken decades to produce in a mountain town. This is aimed at building better discussions about ethical values, building greater empathy among these different demographics, not just proselytizing for one particular point of view. It's a process that I like to call recreation. It's where we form environmental ethics and policy through that grounding in a sense of place. I'm hoping to attach an ongoing environmental blog or podcast that really hones in on these environmental ethics issues and provides continuity in this subject material. And maybe even dabble into what I call ethics through peripatetics, organizing walking or hiking tours that are interpretive of critical local spaces. And that's something we can partner with networks that are already doing.
Man, that shit was nerve-wracking, bro.
So I have initial support from my
Doing the first trial of the fucking interview.
And the Talk Council, which are
For the
going to be
scans,
great,
for the
great
big project.
But I'm
Did the
also
first
seeking
trial?
further partnerships with
That's what I was doing.
environmental
That's what I was doing just now.
organizations,
When I was
like the
in
wonderful
that
High
meeting
Country
for like an hour
Conservation
and a half.
Advocates, the Gunnison Net Rep District,
Interviewing
the
and
Sustainable
asking
Tourism and
questions.
Outdoor Recreation
Yeah.
Committee,
That's the
and
big
some
part.
other
Yeah, so on the 22nd, we have
So I
a
think
full
that's all the
interview.
time I have time for. But if any first-year students
And
are
I'm the
interested
project manager on the
in
project, so
to have some continuity with, I'd love to talk to you about maybe where we can take it from here. I'll turn it over
it's
to
crazy.
Chad, who
I've
has
never done
amazing
this.
work that he'll be doing with
From
similar
MCN,
mountain resilience and a
Lisa,
little further extensive.
Bassim is in the interview. Rick Munford, Jonas,
Everybody was talking.
myself. Yeah, we all talk.
You gonna do
Hello,
portrait,
everyone.
change your setting?
Mountain
Portrait
Resilience
rather than
Coalition,
landscape.
defending headwaters
Yeah,
and
yeah.
mountain
On my
communities.
Uh-huh.
This is a big title that has
Maybe you have it on landscape.
tons of jobs to do.
Yeah, I mean,
My
I've been
stakeholders for this
different
project
people,
are the Aspen
and they
International
have
Mountain
never done it.
Foundation, Telluride Institute,
This is their
Western
first time.
Colorado University, the
Projects are huge,
FAO,
so
and the Mountain
they're
Partnership.
interviewing the Clarks.
The
They're
partnership
interviewing
is quite
Clark,
interesting
Turner,
because it unites more than 100
us,
communities together, mountainous communities together all around northern and
Go
southern
to,
America. Next.
yeah,
Howard.
right there.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Why should you care?
You're welcome.
people I know. So
Well, first and foremost,
Derek,
around
Chai, Grant.
24% of Earth's land
Phil.
area are covered by mountains.
Phil, you got
Mountains
Phil.
house
If you,
more than
if you
14%
fuck up,
of
you know
the
what I
world's
mean?
population. Our
Yeah.
peaks provide 70% of the world's fresh water. They host around
I'm
about
gonna ask-
25%
my
of
part
terrestrial
is, like,
biodiversity.
Overall,
Mountains also
global
supply tons of
impact.
renewable energy.
That's my
Mountains also
rolling
contribute to food security with key mountain crops. And finally, like a perfect example that we live in here, mountains contribute to around 20% of global tourism.
Eye level.
Next.
Yeah, I'm the grand scheme.
So some of the
Jonas
challenges
Project
that
Manager.
mountain communities are facing, the first one is the rapid increase in global average temperature, which is causing faster climate change events up there, stressing the integrity of soil and water bodies, is posing a risk on biodiversity and a risk on the community itself.
Definitely different.
And other goals and
need to
potential
have two
challenges
interviews
that we're
fucking
expecting
fucking
are, some of the goals are to unite mountainous communities better while assuring food security and biodiversity, sharing experiences and data between these communities to make better decisions.
190 million.
Some of the challenges are trying to keep colonialist ideas out of the project, give local communities the utmost decision-making power, and provide mountainous communities enough support to handle the effects of climate change. Thank you so much. Next. Yep. Yeah. Now it's time for Chase. Yeah.
Would
Yeah,
everybody,
unfortunately, he's sick.
this is Dr. John. Would everybody please mute?
We can then have some time for
Mute.
questions.
Yes, questions, please.
I've got a question for the whole panel. For all of you, I can speak up if you want. I'm just curious, all of you are doing such amazing projects. They all sound so cool, but they're all like big, long problems. And I'm kind of curious how you are just grappling with the short time frame of the MEM project and fitting that into the long-term scale of the work you're doing.
I'll start. For me, I have a conference in DC that I'm presenting on just the scope of what we're going to do for our program. And so I'm basically making, this project, like setting it up so that when we go on the trip next May, I have the system kind of already laid out, and then we can try it out better this next year.
Yeah, a great question, Sean. I think for me, Sean is essentially asking about the longevity, the timeline of the projects and how they fit into the scope of how, I guess, immense the issues that we're facing is. So for me, I think about my role as, especially as a foreigner going to a community, and what that positionality puts me in. And so I think of myself more as a facilitator and a networker, someone who can be a bridge, essentially. I don't see myself necessarily, as integrating fully into the Indian community in 1 year, and when I'll be there. And when I leave, what does that look like? I don't want to leave a vacuum. I don't want to leave a space, something that I created, and then when I leave, it's useless, essentially. So I'm trying to follow kind of the Peace Corps model of sustainability in your project, of creating leadership that is sustainable. So, empowering, that's what I was trying to mention at the end of my project, like empowering people who are doing the work, so if it's the women who are out there in the field, make sure that they're part of the co-op structure and that they are making the decisions. And I'm there to maybe provide suggestions and bring an outside input, have an outside perspective on maybe what's going on and what could be done to help. So I guess that's how I'd answer that question.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we kind of nibble at the elephant. It's no way to completely solve any of these problems with just one MEM project, but to put something in place that kind of gets a start to it has a lot of meaning. And again, it's kind of a praxis for me. It's shaping who I am by the actions that I'm engaging in. I'm also hoping that the continuation of a blog or podcast for my project will be something that kind of lives on. That's something that I can maintain or other students can jump into and maintain. And that will give like a longer term horizon to kind of the environmental ethics side of things.
Well, for me, there's a wide spectrum of problems and actions that can be done. And it's so hard to pick the right one for some academic reasons. The Mountain Partnership, they're hosting like a huge seminar and a commitment all over the world next month in Aspen. So I'm gonna go there, engage with the people, ask what's the main problems to consider in working on. Plus the SDGs from the United Nations are good guidelines to follow, they're solid, they have a solid foundation when it comes to tackling several issues at once, or main issues for the long term and short term. Thank you.
And as we are short with time, we have to close and continue with the next panel. And a big applause for this.